Monster Hunter World is a 2018 action RPG developed by Capcom and the 5th mainline installment in the Monster Hunter series, available on PS4, Xbox One and PC. It's a game where you take on the role as hunter to, well, hunt monsters. It kinda says it on the box, doesn't it? But by the sounds of it, this game seems to be so much more than that. My name is Chev, and in this video I will tell you if you should refund Monster Hunter World within 2 hours of in-game playtime, probably better known as the Steam Refund Time. A game should be good straight away, not 10 hours in. So let's see what this $30 game is all about. My knowledge about this game is as limited as my ability to go outside, as I barely know a thing about it. I've heard comparisons being made to Pokemon Legends Arceus, but when I brought this up to my friend, who pushed me to finally give this game a shot, they just laughed at me and said, no, absolutely not. Fair enough. Instead, they told me that this game lets you hunt monsters in various ways, where you can pick your own style of combat from a wide array of options and truly master a playstyle. Okay, that sounds interesting. What else? Well, apparently there's also an extensive crafting system that allows you to craft all sorts of things to aid you in your journey throughout the world of Monster Hunter, and a pretty cool storyline to accompany it. They also told me that this game is best enjoyed by playing it with your friends, as it's designed around the idea you do so. Yet, I did decide to play the first 2 hours of Monster Hunter World alone, to get comfortable with the game's mechanics and overall gameplay, and simulate a true gamer experience. I can tell you now that playing it solo for the first 2 hours didn't positively nor negatively impact my views on the game, as I didn't feel like it made a big difference in any way, besides maybe your friends laughing at you for being such a noob. One final thing before we get into the summary of my playtime and my experiences with the game, I want to hear from you. Have you played Monster Hunter World, and if so, how do you feel about it? And if you haven't, what holds you back from playing it? Whilst you're down there, consider leaving a like, as it really helps me out, and subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the Shoot You Refund series. Now that we got all the housekeeping out of the way, it's time for us to dissect Monster Hunter World. So this overview was supposed to start off with me showing you how I booted up the game and was met with some incredible menu options straight away, allowing you to change some simple yet important settings like brightness, audio and accessibility stuff. Nothing revolutionary, but I just wanted to point out that I truly appreciate it when games allow you to do so when you first boot up the game, instead of you having to go out of your way to fiddle around in the settings menu. But the mindless goblin that I am, I accidentally restarted my PC through Steam Big Picture mode when I wanted to exit out of the game to tweak some audio stuff and corrupted my footage. So yeah, that's why you're looking at the normal settings menu now. Boring, I know, but they generally do a great job with their settings as a whole, as for once on PC, it physically shows you, by giving you an indicator of VRAM, if your PC can actually handle certain settings, instead of you having to guess and hope that the game doesn't turn into a PowerPoint presentation when you finally boot it up. Okay, enough settings talk, let's talk about the actual game. You start off with a very brief cutscene where it talks about something called the New World and a ship. We're not going off much here, but I figured that we're going to take a ship to the New World. And the ship is actually where our story starts, as you join your character from a first-person perspective as you walk around the ship and sit down to have what I assume to be a beer. This might sound odd, but straight away I was intrigued, as I saw some interesting weapons and creatures around me, which made me wonder, what are those? They look cool, can I have them? Which is something I consider to be extremely important when you first start up a game. Instant wonder about what's going on. This can be achieved through a story, which in the case of Monster Hunter World wasn't necessarily what piqued my interest, as there wasn't much to go off, but it can also be done by showing you cool stuff that you can hopefully obtain later. This was also my first introduction of the game's graphics. Now, I'm not going to talk about this in too much detail, as everyone's experience on PC might be different due to their specs, but I played this game on max settings and it ran extremely smoothly and looked quite nice as well. Something about the art style really connected with me. It's kind of hard to describe, as art is as subjective as my takes, but it felt Guild Wars 2 fantasy-like in the cutscenes and areas, but more realistic when you encounter actual monsters. A weird mix, I know, but I don't know how to better describe it. Anyway, after being introduced to some characters that I'd assumed to be my future friends, and who told me I was part of some special hunters group, I was prompted to make my character, And let me tell you, this was a treat. Now, part of my enjoyment might come from my previous experience with a character creation menu, which was in my Fallout 4 Shoot Your Refund video, but the menu in World felt intuitive and offered you plenty of options to customize your character to your liking. You could either choose out of some presets or go completely AWOL and create whatever character you like. I decided to do a mix of these two and created the character you see in front of you. Could you believe I don't watch anime? No, seriously, I really don't watch anime. One thing I didn't like was that you couldn't change your body type. It looked a bit weird to me. I don't know, it's whatever really, because it was covered up with some armor straight away, which I apparently got for buying the game. Sure. At first, I thought this was some sort of convoluted difficulty setting. The less armor, the more difficult the overall experience would be, but it wasn't. I was just given this armor straight away for buying the game. We will get back to that armor a little bit later as well, as apparently it's ridiculously overpowered. After I created my character, I had to create my cat, which would accompany me on my journey and help me out whenever. Now let me tell you, this creature is absolutely adorable, and if something happens to them throughout the game, I will not stop until I find whatever hurt it and utterly destroy them. Anyway, after I created everything, I now finally saw my character from the third person perspective, as this game is in third person. Some more characters were introduced, and whilst my guy was chatting up some girl, the ship suddenly started shaking. We ran up to the upper deck, or whatever it's called in seaman's terms, and saw some sort of huge lava burn. Yeah, it wasn't Titanic 2.0, but it did have the same effect as we capsized and my character passed out. This was about 10 minutes into the game, by the way, if you count the character customization as actual playtime. Straight away, throwing you into some sort of jeopardy and having you on your toes, ready for whatever there is to come. Good stuff in my eyes, as you're instantly locked in and ready to take on whatever is right in front of you. No boring, oh, walk here and press this button for a safe tutorial area. I mean, the game kind of did that after I woke up on the lava berg, but in a more urgent way, as it gave you the idea that if you didn't figure it out quick enough, you die. I bet you that you can stand there for hours up on end with the screen shaking and the character you're following screaming, "Hurry up!" But it's the thought that counts. Let's not get too cynical here. The movement controls are very simple and quite fluent, as a lot is done with just the left joystick. Yes, I'm a controller Andy, fight me. But it also made it so that traversing the world felt smooth and intuitive. Got close to a wall, just walk against it and you latch onto it to climb. Needed to move on the wall, no need for some fancy button combination to jump from one ridge to another, just point your joystick there and you will go there. Simple controls like this can make games feel stale very quickly, but in the case of Monster Hunter World, it's not necessarily their movement controls that should have its complexity. It should be in its combat and dodging, which we get to in a bit. Once at the top of the berg, we had to jump off and latch onto a wyvern for us to safely escape what at first looked like a giant lava berg, but I'm pretty certain is some sort of giant monster now, as when you fly away, the game suggests it is. I don't know, some of you might be thinking that I am completely crazy, or you might think I'm a genius for figuring it out, and if so, I like you. I hope you have a great day today. Once arrived at the wrong side of the new world, we find an abandoned camp, which the handler, as she is called, gives us our map. At first, this might seem like a small detail, but in my eyes, it's something that just adds that little extra to games, being given a map, instead of just having one. How does a guy in Skyrim, who's ready to be executed, happen to have a map of the world on him? A small detail, which some of you might not even care about, but details like these truly make a game and show you that the developers think about their worlds and care about their games. Speaking of care, we get a nice little cutscene of the first region with some dinosaurs walking about and the game showing off its beauty. This is where the more quote-unquote realistic aesthetic of the game comes in, as the dinos and scenery look a bit less fantasy-like than, for example, the ship, and more true to what you'd see in reality. After the cutscene, we get our first glimpse of the user interface, and I'm very much indifferent to it. It's simple enough, with the minimap in the bottom left, the health bar in the top left, controls top right, and below that your mission objectives. Nothing difficult to understand, but especially the wall of text below the controls is a bit much. Just give me the current objective and not ticked off objectives I already done. A minor thing, but it didn't look great to me. By far not the worst interface I've ever seen, but not the best either. At this point, the game opens up a bit and lets you walk around and explore the area without you being attacked. This makes a lot of sense as we don't have any weapons ourselves, so it's nice to get the chance to calmly look around and see what is there. Once again, a small detail, and something that many probably don't even think about, is the fact that you were on the ship chilling, meaning you probably didn't have any weapons on you, you then crashed. Chances are that if you even had weapons on you, you would have lost them. So whenever you actually land, it makes sense you don't have any weapons. It's the small things, guys. Trust me. That is not what she said, but oh well. The game also introduces you to its scout flies mechanic. Glowing flies that show you where to go when you place a marker, you lost the character you were following, or whenever you were tracking a dino. A mechanic that I think is needed, and in this case fits very well with the theme of the game, instead of having some sort of like neon yellow trail that you can follow. The keeper and you make it into some sort of grove, but there are these dinos that are aggressive, so we have to hide. Now here's where the main type of objective marker comes in, and the one that confused me. This marker looked like a target to me, so I decided to avoid it. Come to figure out later, as I was aimlessly running away from the monsters whilst I had to hide, is that the red target marker wasn't one at all, but the place where I needed to go. A minor thing of course, but it did throw me off as most games use similar markers to indicate enemies. After safely escaping the dino attack, we made our way outside again, where some bigger and more aggressive dinos started attacking us. We get saved here by some hench guy from the settlement that we were actually supposed to be at and get taken into town. The game does a great job here of switching between cutscenes and gameplay, which overall is something they did very well throughout my time playing. Once in the settlement, called Astera, you meet up with your drinking buddies from before and you get shown around the place and introduced to its inhabitants. I did encounter a bit of an issue here, mainly something that just confused me. During my introduction to the area, I met up with the commander, someone I'd consider to be very important, as he is, the commander. So you would expect him to be voice acted, which at first he was, as he greeted you and welcomed you to the settlement, but the rest of his dialogue is not voice acted and requires you to read text. I'd understand if shopkeepers and other NPCs aren't voice acted, but why is it a small bit of the commander's voice is acted and the rest isn't? Meaning there is a voice actor for him and the rest just wasn't done? A bit of a weird, confusing decision there. It's not the end of the world again, but it does feel inconsistent with the majority of characters being voice acted. Oh well, it is what it is. After being shown the smithy, which we will touch upon a little later, we get reunited with our cat, which was a very wholesome moment and made me really happy. We then attend some meeting where yet again half of it was voice acted and half wasn't, before being shown our living quarters. This is where you have a storage box where you can store items so you don't have to keep them on you at all times and giving you more inventory space. But this is also where you equip and unequip armor and weapons, as I haven't found any other way to do so except at the smithies. Apparently the armor that I have on at this moment, the purchase bonus one, is extremely overpowered. I figured this out whilst playing, as I didn't really take any damage, but kind of contributed to some skill on my end and overall early game babying of the game, silly me of course, as I spoke to my friend afterwards and they told me that the armor was meant to rush you through the base game as quick as possible so you would get to the expansion quicker. So quick tip from my part, if you want a more challenging experience, don't use it. It didn't really negatively impact my own, but in hindsight, I shouldn't have used it at all. During Interface Simulator, I was prompted to choose a weapon, and oh boy, if any developer ever comes across this video, take freaking note. You get given a weapon of each type. At first, very overwhelming, but the game has little cutscenes explaining its strengths and exactly what it does, making it so that you have a load of choices, but can actually make a decision based on the description given to you through these cutscenes. I find this a fantastic feature as it instantly gives you the ability to hone your own playstyle and not lock you into a few options before the game gives you more later on. This no lock-in idea comes back to its upgrade system as well, as you can upgrade these weapons with resources at the smithy, and if you want to switch to another weapon because you don't like its playstyle, you could just de-upgrade them and get your resources back, making it so that you can freely switch between these weapons early on and try out what you like best. I would have liked to known this while picking the weapons, as it was later told to me when I first upgraded them, because that would have put even less pressure on me picking a style. I decided to pick the Iron Blade as it had some cool jump move and tried it out in the training area. This training area was interesting as it allows you to test out combos and gives you some advice. However, look at this interface. It's such a cluster. I know I have bigger text interfaces, but holy moly. A great feature to have in the game, but I'd assume that when you actually play the game, you want to try it out in a real life situation, and you probably have some specific monster you always go to try your weapons on. After messing around a little bit, I was introduced to the game's quest system, which was divided into a few subcategories. Your assigned quest, pretty much the main quest, optional quests, which are your side quests, investigations, where you investigate a special type of monster, events, which are the game's timed events, which you can play all of them off, even if they have expired, and special assignments, which honestly I have no clue about what they are. Most quests have some sort of extra requirement to them as well, like a time limit or a limitation where you are not allowed to die. All these quests can be played with others, either through your friends list or online matchmaking, but as stated before, I decided to fly solo. I picked my first quest and was transported to its starting zone, where I was told I get given some supplies for each quest, like healing potions and whatever else they think I might need. A nice convenient feature, and especially great if specific items are needed and you don't have them on you. The game just gives them to you. A feature that some might not like, but I actually do, as it feels terrible when you start a quest, realize you don't have something, and have to go backtrack again. And the game doesn't give you an infinite amount, so you still have to be careful with your supplies. My mission was simple: revenge. Hunt some Yagras, the creatures that attacked us earlier. As I came to find out during my next missions, which I will go over in less detail, they were all kind of the same. Hunt X creature X amount of times, or track X creature and slay it. I mean, the game is called Monster Hunter World, so it's kind of expected, but it was something that I noticed straight away, the repetitive nature of the quest structure. I tracked down the den of the Yagras and took my sweet revenge with my new acquired weapon, which was very cool to use, and my first introduction to the game's combat system, which felt very smooth and fun to do, even if I was too dumb to use the lock-on feature to make it even better. Yeah, I sometimes wonder how I got my uni degree as well, don't worry. The same argument I made about the game's movement goes for its combat. It's intuitive and easy to use. Circle and triangle to do two types of attacks, and in the case of my weapon, R2 plus X to jump up in the air and do some sick combo moves there, which didn't really work on the Yagras as they were too small, but probably work a treat on bigger creatures. This functionality changes as later I switched to dual blades and my R2 turned into something called demon mode, allowing me to go into some sort of berserker mode for a couple of seconds and do rapid big damage, adding to the variety of playstyles that this game is known for, with each weapon having its own special abilities. Simple gameplay, but offering a lot of options with the various special abilities each weapon has, which probably varies in usability in each scenario, as my jump ability didn't really apply to these smaller creatures, where the demon mode would have been a lot better. Same goes with the combos. There seems to be a lot of options with those too, even if they only have 2 attack buttons. Not every game needs to have a million button combinations to have engaging and fun combat. You can also do it through the way your weapons functions, which in the case of Monster Hunter World is what they seem to have gone for. After I slayed the monsters I was assigned, skinned them for supplies and explored the den a little bit, I finished my quest, and yet again a feature of convenience was introduced here. I got an overview of all items I acquired during my quest, which I was able to take with me or instantly sell. No need to go to a shop, which I found very convenient, as I can imagine that later on especially, you know exactly what you need and don't need and can quick sell everything that is useless to you. Perfect. I was also given some levels for my cat and myself, but I didn't really understand what they buffed, which I suppose is just general health and damage, as there was no introduction to a skill tree or other level up systems or anything. I returned to base, learned how the armor upgrade system works, which is very simple: get supplies and click button to upgrade. And this is also where I decided to switch to the dual wield weapons, as I wanted to try something else and learn about its upgrading system I mentioned earlier. Nothing much new happened for the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, as I did another quest similar to the first one before going on my first tracking quest, where I had to track a giant Jaguar into a dungeon. To be honest with you, I was kind of scared that this mechanic would feel like a bit of a chore. I was afraid that you had to follow some vague clues to figure out where the monster would go, but instead, the tracker flies highlighted where your clues are and you just had to interact with them. Once I encountered the giant Jaguar, I realized that this was kind of my first proper boss fight, as he had some simple mechanics like a tail swipe, a charge attack and minion spawns. Due to my armor, I could phase tank pretty much everything, but I still tried to dodge it as much as possible. It felt fun and satisfying as you didn't just 5-hit him, you truly had to fight him. Get him hit on his side so you could do some more damage and run after him when he returned, or fight off his minions when he called for them to aid them. All simple mechanics, but fun and really intuitive, something I'm assuming will get more complex the further you get into the game. At this point, I was getting to the end of my session, where I thought I still had time to set out on one final mission, a bounty. I had to rebuild the ancient forest camp. These missions worked a little bit different, as they were completely free roam, no time limit, no marker. Just an area and you had to figure out what to do. I didn't have time to complete it, but it did feel a bit more adventurous than the mainline story missions and something that truly did excite me to complete them, but unfortunately my timer went off and it's time to ask the all important question. Should you refund Monster Hunter World? To be honest with you, I think an apology is in place, as I have been putting off playing this game for the longest time now, whilst my friend kept on encouraging me to start playing it and telling me I would really enjoy it, and they were right. I did. This game is just fun to play. It's hard to truly describe, I have to, that's kind of the point of these videos, but I just had a great time. Usually with games, it takes a little while to get accustomed to its controls, general idea of their gameplay, or really get into their story. Monster Hunter World is very simple in that regard, but not in the negative sense of the word. The gameplay is intuitive and simple to understand, whilst the combat has enough depth to it within its various weapons and specific combos to keep it interesting during your time playing. I can for sure see this game being very replayable without having to start over as well, because whenever you get bored, you just switch to a different weapon and play the game in a completely different way. Story wise, this game might not be on the level of The Last of Us, but that is totally not the point. This game is about you upgrading your character and hunting bigger and badder monsters with a story added onto it. Sure, there is some interesting lore there, as humanity clearly seems to be semi-advanced, yet are still living with these creatures. And not to forget, the giant lava berg monster from earlier. There's definitely some intrigue there. But its strengths lay in its gameplay, and probably its multiplayer as well, seeing as a lot of these weapons also seem to have some synergy with each other. One does more damage when enemies are stunned, and one is great at stunning, so playing with friends is probably a blast as well. And if you're worried about microtransactions, as the Steam page has over 200 items for sale, they are all cosmetic. No gameplay buffs can be bought with in real life money. Regarding downsides, sure, the game has some too, but they're all very minor in my opinion. The inconsistency in voice acting versus non-voice acting, the quest marker issue I had, and at times the interface having too much information on it. But besides that, I have nothing much bad to say about this game. So should you refund Monster Hunter World? Absolutely not. Go get it, then probably play it with your friends to make it even more fun. It's quite often on sale on Steam, so you can pick it up for cheap as well. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel to see more Shoot Your Refund videos. What game should I do next? Let me know in the comment section down below. And my name is Chev, and I'll see you guys in the next video.